Hello everyone and welcome. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important forms of writing you will encounter in college and throughout your professional life, and that is the informative essay. But before we begin, I want you to imagine a situation. Suppose that tomorrow one of your professors gives you an assignment and says, here are 300 pages of statistics, articles, interviews, reports, and research studies. Everything you need to know is somewhere in these documents. Then the professor leaves. Now, let me ask you a question. Would having all that information automatically mean that you understand the topic? Probably not. Why not? Because information and understanding are not the same thing. Information consists of facts, statistics, quotations, and ideas, while understanding happens when those pieces connect. Think about a puzzle. When you first open the box, all you see are pieces, colors, shapes, fragments. You have information, but you do not yet have the picture. As you connect the pieces, however, something begins to happen. Why? Because a larger image starts to emerge. The pieces begin making sense and understanding develops. Well, informative essays work exactly the same way. Readers often arrive with scattered pieces of information. Your job as a writer is to help them connect those pieces and see the larger picture. Throughout today's lesson, we're going to follow a first-year college student. Meet Walter. Walter has just received his first informative essay assignment. Like many students, he isn't quite sure where to begin. Together, we're going to watch Walter move from a blank page to a complete informative essay. Along the way, you'll learn how informative essays work, how they are organized, how evidence should be used, and how strong writers help readers understand complex topics. So, let's begin. Let's start with the most basic question. What exactly is an informative essay? Well, an informative essay is a piece of writing whose primary purpose is to explain, clarify, educate, or increase understanding. Notice what is not on this list. Persuading, arguing, convincing, those purposes belong to argumentative writing. According to the Purdue Online Writing Lab, expository or informative writing investigates ideas, evaluates evidence, and explains information clearly and objectively. In other words, informative writers act as teachers. Their goal is to help readers understand a topic. Now, let's bring Walter into the picture. Walter receives an assignment about artificial intelligence. His first thought is, I want to explain why artificial intelligence is good. Well, that sounds reasonable, but there is a problem. The assignment does not ask Walter to argue that artificial intelligence is good. The assignment asks him to help readers understand what artificial intelligence is. Do you see the difference? One focuses on persuasion. The other one focuses on understanding. That distinction is extremely important because it influences every decision Walter will make as a writer. As we move forward, keep asking yourself, am I helping readers understand? Or am I trying to make them agree with me? That question will help you identify whether you are writing informatively or arguing. At this point, some students naturally wonder, why do professors assign informative essays? And that is a fair question. After all, most people don't spend their careers writing college essays. They do spend their careers explaining things. For example, nurses explain medical conditions. Teachers explain concepts. Engineers explain systems. Managers explain procedures. Business professionals explain data. Software developers explain technology. So, as you see, in every profession, people transform information into understanding. That's exactly what informative writing teaches you to do. In fact, one of the most valuable skills you can develop is the ability to explain complicated ideas clearly. Think about the people you admire as communicators. Are they the people who make everything sound confusing? Probably not. Actually, the best communicators are often the people who can take something complicated and make it understandable. Well, informative writing does that. It helps develop this particular skill. So while you may not spend your career writing essays, you will almost certainly spend your career explaining information. That is why this form of writing matters. Now, let's look more closely at a distinction that often confuses students. Informative writing and argumentative writing. These two may look similar on the surface because they both include introductions, both of them use evidence, both have body paragraphs. However, their purposes are completely different. Let's look at Walter's topic. Suppose Walter writes, artificial intelligence is transforming society through automation, data analysis, and personalized technology. This thesis explains. Now, imagine Walter writes, governments should impose stricter regulations on artificial intelligence. Well, this thesis actually argues. So the first thesis helps readers understand, while the second thesis attempts to persuade. Whenever you feel unsure, ask yourself, what am I asking readers to do? If you are asking readers to understand, you're writing informatively. If you are asking readers to agree, you're writing argumentatively. Understanding this difference will help you avoid one of the most common mistakes students make. Let's think about informative writers in another way. Imagine visiting a city you've never seen before. Everything is unfamiliar. The streets, the landmarks, the neighborhoods. Without guidance, you might feel lost, right? Now, imagine someone knowledgeable, someone from that city walks beside you. They explain where you are, they explain what you're seeing, they explain why certain places matter. So suddenly, the city begins making sense. Well, informative writers perform a similar role because they guide readers through unfamiliar territory. Notice that a guide doesn't simply point at buildings. A guide provides context. A guide explains significance. A guide helps visitors understand what they are seeing. As informative writers, we should do the same thing because our goal isn't to overwhelm readers with facts. On the opposite, our goal is to help them understand those facts. That's a subtle but important difference. Now, let's look at some common forms of informative writing. The first type is the definition essay. The definition essay explains what something is. Let's look at this example. What is emotional intelligence? So this topic is asking for an explanation of a term. Therefore, we want to give a definition and explain it. The second type is the process essay. The process essay explains how something works. For example, how online banking works. The third type is the cause and effect essay. These essays explain relationships. For example, how social media influences self-esteem. The fourth type is the compare and contrast essay. These essays examine similarities and differences. For example, online learning versus traditional learning. Finally, there are classification essays. Classification essays organize information into categories. For example, types of leadership styles. Although these essay types differ, they all share one goal: helping readers understand. And that's the central purpose of informative writing. Let's return to our puzzle analogy. Imagine that Walter begins researching artificial intelligence. Soon, he finds research studies, survey results, expert interviews, government reports, articles, books, statistics. At first, all this information may feel overwhelming. The pieces seem disconnected. This is exactly how many students feel during research. The information exists, but the picture has not yet emerged. So the writer's job is to connect those pieces. As Walter organizes his research, patterns begin to appear. Relationships become visible. The topic starts making sense. This is one of the most important lessons in today's presentation. Informative writing is not about collecting information, but it is about organizing information so readers can understand it. Because the strongest informative essays do not simply provide pieces, but they reveal the picture. Now that we understand what informative essays are, let's talk about what makes them effective. Strong informative essays share several important characteristics. First, they are clear. Readers should never feel confused about what the writer is trying to explain. Second, they are organized. which means that the idea should appear in a logical sequence. Third, they are supported by evidence, because writers should use credible sources and reliable information. Fourth, they provide explanations. This is where, unfortunately, some students struggle. They provide information, but they fail to explain its significance. Remember a very important thing here. Information does not automatically create understanding. Explanation creates understanding. And finally, strong informative essays remain focused on their purpose. They help readers learn, they help readers understand, and they help readers see the larger picture. Speaking of larger picture, Walter is now ready to begin building his essay. He has selected a topic. He understands the purpose of informative writing. The next question is, how does he actually organize his ideas? That's exactly what we're going to explore in the next section of our lesson.